All right, hello everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. My name is Taylor Fry, and I serve as president of Student Alumni Board.
And my name is Sierra Lakey, and I'm currently serving as the Vice President of Campus Programming for SAB.
So on behalf of Student Alumni Board, we'd like to welcome you to the 5th Annual Distinguished Young Alumni. We are so excited that you are here with us today, and today should be a really, really exciting time as we have two fantastic keynote presentations from some fantastic alumni. So before we begin tonight's presentation, I'd like to say just a few thank yous. First of all, I'd like to thank the K-State Alumni Association and its Board of Directors for their continued support of Student Alumni Board and our programming along with DYA. I'd also like to thank our President and CEO, Amy Button-Rins, for all of her incredible work and her support. I'd like to thank President Richard Myers and the Vice President of Student Life, Dr. Bosco, again for always supporting us and always helping us promote this wonderful event. Lastly, I'd like to thank both of the recipients as well as their families for spending time with us and for representing K-State so well.
Y también queremos bienvenir a los padres de los recipientes. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what Student Alumni Board does, SAB consists of about 40 students who serve the university by serving as a physical link between the Alumni Association and past, present, and future K-Staters. Over the past 8 months, members of the Student Alumni Board have been working behind the scenes of the Distinguished Young Alumni Program in an effort to connect current K-State students with the most passionate and most accomplished K-State graduates that are under the age of 35. This year, we are excited to introduce to you our Distinguished Young Alumni Award recipients, the 2017 honorees, Mr. Jorge Mendoza and Mr. Dalton Henry.
All right, and before we welcome Jorge up here, we'll just do a little bit of logistics. So for the first keynote, we are very, very excited to hear from Jorge. As soon as Jorge finishes his keynote, everyone is welcome to go outside into the lobby, and there will be refreshments and cookies out there, so please enjoy those. And then we will come back in at 5:30 to welcome Dalton and his family as they start that keynote. So with that, I will turn it over to you one last time.
All right, so our first honoree is a native of Garden City, Kansas, but currently resides in Columbus, Ohio, and is the STEM Exploration Program Manager for the Ohio State University. While at K-State, he was an active member of the Developing Scholars Program, the McNair Scholars Program, Research Experience for Undergraduates, Hispanic American Leadership Organization, and Bridges to the Future. He also served as president of the Multicultural Honor Society, and he graduated from K-State in 2010 with a degree in biology. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jorge Mendoza.
Let me put my timer on, because I tend to go over things. Okay, so I was extremely honored and humbled whenever I received that news that I was going to be a distinguished young alumni. Nonetheless, I did question it. I know that I'm young and handsome, but I don't know about distinguished. So I was extremely honored about that, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be here. So today I'll be talking about branching out, and that's why I have a sloth. I was here in your shoes for many of you guys, and I honestly, all I wanted to do was just like degree. That's all I wanted to do. But I started getting involved into research and with different organizations, and if I did anything that resembles success or highlights, it's not because of me. It's mainly because I had great mentors, and I'll be talking about them, and great people and great faculty here at Kansas State University that pointed me to that direction. So my title is a little bit long. It's the STEM Exploration and Engagement Scholars Program Manager. And yeah, I'm working at the Ohio State University, which some people didn't take it that well because apparently everyone hates the Ohio State University in sports. But first, I want to talk about what I'll be talking today. I guess I was trained into showing you the path that I'll be talking today. So I'll be talking a little bit about my roots, life at Kansas State University, things that work for me, and overcoming large obstacles. Graduate school, life was a sloth, even though you have to work a lot. And enjoying your job, and secrets to an undergraduate, which there are not secrets, but we don't use them as much. So, okay, about my roots. I want to thank my grandma. She was a wonderful lady. She died at the age of 80 years old. She died without knowing how to read or write, but she left a great legacy. My mom and my dad, my mother graduated as a secretary in Mexico City, and my dad is a welder. With that, I have 3 brothers, and the 4 of us, we have 4 associate's degree, 3 bachelor's degree, 2 from Kansas State University, and a master's degree. So at the age about 10 or so, that little handsome guy, it's me, I moved from Mexico City to Garden City, Kansas. It was totally different than what I was used to, not just because it was a whole different country, and because I was expecting to see buildings. And my parents told me that they were going to take me from a decent place to a better place, but I didn't see any buildings, and in Mexico City we do have those. Instead, they took me to a place where you see cows and smell poop all the time. But they told me that that poop is the smell of money. Really quick, I'm jumping, but I want to tell you a little bit about my community. My community in my hometown, Garden City, Kansas, is a multicultural community where you have about 40-50% of Hispanics. You have Vietnamese, you have Laos, you have Somalians, white people, and it works. It's a good system. And in fact, my mom, who is here, she does not speak English. It's a community that's able to allow every single ethnicity to survive and to be their own and keep themselves. Sometimes they talk about being able to introduce yourself to the culture, but I also think it's important to keep those special things that you have to survive from those communities. Okay, so some of the small obstacles that I had as a kid, which as a kid, they were not small, I'm telling you, they were big. One of my greatest obstacles at that time was learning English. For me, there were times that I thought that I was never gonna learn English. But then I started doing good. I started getting involved in school. I started getting awards for things. I started doing really good in school, being president of different organizations in high school. Job shadowing optometries, had a lot of friends, a girlfriend. So I was living the dream. I was gonna go to college, get a bachelor's, and then go to optometry school until I met a professor that I'll be talking to about in a minute. So that was my obstacle, and I thought I had fixed that. I thought I had overcome that obstacle of not speaking English, but there's one thing that I hang into, and that was my accent. And sometimes people mention, oh, you have an accent, where are you from? Where am I from? I'm from different places. But what I consider home is Garden City, but I can't hide that I'm from Mexico City. But nonetheless, I had overcome that obstacle. Until one day, I was working at Staples, and this lady comes in asking for, oh man, I'm gonna tell you how old I am, which I'm not that old. We had these things called PDA, which they work like an iPhone, but they're nothing like an iPhone. You can do text messaging, you can email people, you could. You can call them. The only thing that you could do is work in Wi-Fi, but it didn't work as well as an iPhone. So one day, this lady comes in to the electronic department where I work. And this lady comes in asking me for, a notepad. And there were some PDA models that they were called notepads. And since I work in the electronic department, where do you think I took that lady to? To the PDAs, naturally, right? And once I was there, she said, this is not what I'm looking for. And I was like, well, what are you looking for? A notepad case. So what did I do? I took them to the notepad case for those things. And then she looked at me, and still, that was not what she was looking for. So she said that she was going to look for that thing on her own. She comes back with my friend Trevor Green, white as you can imagine, red hair. And then as the lady's leaving, he tells me, what a witch. Except that he did use the bad word. And I said, why? Without wanting to know his response. And he said, no, I don't want to hurt your feelings. And I was like, okay, I want to walk away because I really don't want to hear that. And then he said, I'll tell you. And I was like, so he said, you know, the minute that she saw me, she said, finally, someone that speaks English. That broke my heart for that whole day. And I talked to my girlfriend back then, and she said, what's wrong? You're not talking. Whenever I don't talk, I guess that's when something is wrong with me. And I told her the experience. She told me, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. That's okay. I know that you speak English, and if you have accent, that's okay. So on that day, I said, I hope that lady remembers me, because one day, I'm going to do something that she'll be like, oh, that was the guy who I told him that he didn't speak English. So it didn't take long, a year and a half. I was selected to be the commencement speaker for the Garden City Community College, and I was speaking in front of 3,000 people, and that was the scariest things that I had ever done. And my mom was in the front crying. And you know what? Whenever I spoke there, I thought that day, not too bad for someone that doesn't speak English, right? Okay, so that was my small obstacle, and then I moved to greater things, right? I moved to Kansas State University. And I'm going to confess that I was going to go into KU, but I was going to go into KU because I wanted to go to optometry school, and they have a medical school. And if they have a medical school, that means that they're going to prepare me really good to go into optometry school, right? Well, I heard about a program that is called Bridges to the Future and Developing Scholars Program. And you know what? They said that I could come to Kansas State University and do research. And at that time, I was taking a class in microbiology that they gave me a bacteria, an unknown bacteria, and I had to figure out what it was. I was only like one of the 25% of the students that got it right. And I was like, if this is research, I really like it, and I want to go do that. And that's why I came here to Kansas State University, moved here, and I thought that Kansas State University was the happiest place in the whole world. Forget about Disneyland. This was the place to be at. Why? Because one, in the small town that I live, what you see as success is a lawyer, a doctor, an optometrist. But once you get to Kansas State University, you go to classes and you see your professor talking about how he does research on plants or in birds or in different things, and you say, you get paid for doing that? Tell me more about it. And so I started exploring different areas that I enjoy. One of them was cancer research. Let me see what's next. So I started doing cancer research. And in the program of developing scholars, I had different aspects that helped me throughout my stay here in Kansas State, which was mentorship one-on-one with a professor, research, a community of peers that had the same struggles as I was having, professional network where I was speaking with different professors and they were giving me their input to be a successful student. And I had many opportunities. So I started doing research in cancer research, and I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to like it. So I was sitting in class one day with my professor, Dr. Sandercock, and he was talking about birds, he was talking about mammals. So I looked him up and I started looking at his research. You had a question? No. Oh, sorry. And he was talking about his research, and and I looked at his research, and he sounded fascinating. He was working with upland sandpipers. He was talking about greater prairie chickens. He was talking about really awesome things that I had only seen on TV. So one day, I made up an excuse to go and visit him during his office hours. And once he solved my question, I asked him, hey, Dr. Sandercock, I did research with developing scholars. Would you like to be my mentor for next year? Not to put him in the spot, right? And this guy, what he did was say, yes, I'll be your mentor. And he didn't stop right there. He said, do you know if I have to provide any money to that program so I can fund you to be my student? And I said, I'm pretty sure you don't have to. And he said, well, you know what? Ask Anita, and if I do, Anita is the director of the program. If I do, I'll write a grant so I can be your mentor. This guy was wanting to spend hours on writing a grant just to fund an undergraduate. That's how much the faculty at Kansas State University care about students. And I'm not saying that everyone is like Dr. Sandercock. I think he's just a great mentor. But we have faculty here that they really care about their undergraduates. And sometimes you just have to seek those opportunities. Okay, remember how I told you that Kansas State University was one of the happiest places in the whole world? And it is. One year, when I was here, my first year here at Kansas State, in that collegian, I saw this article that kept mixing illegal immigrants with immigrants and talking about how we bring TB and other diseases here to the United States. To me, that was really offensive, and it hurt me. But you know what? That was okay. We did what we thought it was correct. We wrote a letter saying, hey, some of your facts are wrong. If you're going to write a letter, or if you're going to write an article like this, that's okay, but get your facts right. And one day, another thing that, and this is a question that I was asked in one of the meetings that I had these days, one of the students asked me, how was it to be bilingual at Kansas State University? And I think it was a phenomenal time, but once in a while you have people that they don't understand this concept yet. So one day, I was coming to Hill Library. Have you guys visited that place? Okay. That's where I lived. I did have an apartment somewhere else, but that's where I lived. So one day at about 9 p.m. or so, I don't know the hours anymore, but back then it was 24/7. So I was at Hill Library, walking with my girlfriend then to my apartment. My apartment was right behind the old stadium parking lot. And so I was crossing one of the apartment complexes right before mine. And all of a sudden I hear a guy yelling at me, go back to your country, with insults and bad words. And I looked to my girlfriend then and I said, did you hear what I heard? And she said, no, let's go. And so we continue walking, and then we hear about 3 guys, silhouettes, running towards us. And I immediately got scared. And I got in front of her, and I said, if anything is going to go bad, I hope that I get it. And then these guys, they were extremely polite. They told me, I'm sorry, my friend is just drunk. He's celebrating his 21st birthday. We don't know where you are from. Nonetheless, it hurt me because this time it wasn't my accent that they heard. It was just the way that it looked. And you know what? I still think that Kansas State University is one of the happiest places on earth, but there's always room for improvement. I think one of the valuable things that we have at Kansas State University is our diversity. I had great friends from the Saudi Club. I had great friends from other countries that came to Kansas State University because they thought that it was such an impressive place to be at and that they could improve it. So I hope that from this message is that you can talk to your friends and educate them in this aspect. Okay, so the professor that destroyed my life by taking me away from optometry school and pointing me to a more exciting life was Dr. Sandercock. And I started doing research with him with upland sandpipers and working at Consa Prairie. It was a great time to be at. In fact, the first time that I went to, or first or second time that I went to his office, he pointed me to the direction of a research experience for undergraduates. He asked me if I knew what it was, and I didn't know what it was. And he said, okay, so it's an internship that you get paid about $5,000 to do research. They give you college credits. You work with a professor, and you can do it anywhere in the United States. They have it in Alaska, Puerto Rico, K-State, Texas. And he asked me if I was interested. I definitely was. I went to him. Let me see if I have the slide. Yeah, there you go. So I went to his office and he said, hey, bring me your CV, which is like a resume, but it's just listing all the things that you do in science or whatever major you are. And I didn't have one. So I made one, he gave me examples, and he kept giving it back to me with red ink every single time that I took it to him, and I took it like 3 times. And once I was done, I was like, glory. And then he told me, now bring me your essay, and I'll go over it. Again, destroyed my paper about 3 times until it was a good paper. You know, even though I was doing a lot of work, he was doing more work than I was. He was taking time out of his busy schedule that he wasn't getting paid to mentor me, and he was giving me that time. So this is some of the things that I think that makes a great mentor, and he obviously has those qualities. And I think that if you are going to be doing research, or if you find a mentor that not necessarily goes into research, but in some areas of your field, I think this is some of the things that you might be looking for. Someone that invests their time to look at you, that you are doing great in your professional, academic, and personal life. Okay, so Dr. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay. Brett Sandercock, he pointed me to different programs that he wanted me to apply. So I applied to the SEEDS program, which is a program that wants to help students to explore the area of ecology and anything derived. So thanks to him, to Anita, to different programs, I was able to go to Puerto Rico, I was able to go to Virginia, I was able to go to Idaho, and many other places. But it was because they wrote me strong letters of recommendations. And since I was involved, that kind of helped me as well. And one of the great things that happened one day was Dr. Sandercock would push me into going into the seminars that the department offers. Man, I used to think those things were boring, so I would never ever go to those. But yet, once I started talking to him, he said, hey, I'm going to the talk. Do you want to come? And I was like, I can't say no to these guys. I'm going to have to go. So I would go with him. And then I started finding them more and more interesting. I was getting to know graduate students. I was getting to know faculty. And that really helped me understand better concepts from the actual work that they were doing to my classes. And one day he invited Dr. Scott Edwards. He works at Harvard. He is the curator for the Natural History Museum. He had a sci-fi show, and he's a big deal in science, right? He's also one of the proponents, I think, of, de-extinction. So bringing in some recently extinct animals or organisms back to this time. Isn't that cool? I think so. So Dr. Edwards came over. Scott or Brett told me to get a cohort of my peers so we can talk to Dr. Edwards one-on-one about our research. I also met with him one-on-one to talk about my personal research, and we met with him as a lab. I sent him an email to Dr. Edwards at the end of the day saying, hey, thank you so much for talking to my peers and to myself. And I got an email back from him saying, hey, I really enjoy my stay at Kansas State University, and I really enjoyed our chat about your research. Would you be interested to come here to Kansas State University, to Harvard and do a paid internship? I was gonna say no, because I was gonna go into optometry school, remember? And I needed to take a couple of classes in order to take that OET and then go to optometry school. But then I talked to Anita, I talked to Brett, and they told me, hey, this is a great experience, but if you are gonna take this experience, which we want you to take it, start thinking about research as a profession. I think you'll be good. You have had really good success on these things, so you should really take it into account. And I definitely went to Kansas State to Harvard over the summer, and I had a fantastic time. These guys have so much money. I was working with a sequencer. I was sequencing the DNA for my own samples. Usually you send it into a lab. I was using those machines, and they trusted someone to actually destroy that $1 million machine. And I didn't want to be guilty, and I never broke it. But they had that much trust in me. So along that time, I talked about my girlfriend then. She was smarter than me. She was way better looking than me. She was a really great student. That she was someone that I admire. And oftentimes I was getting the award. And don't worry, she got a lot of awards. But I felt sometimes I was stealing the spotlight from her. You know how I told you that I had small obstacles? Well, this was my larger obstacle. When I was about 2 days to return from Harvard University, I got a phone call telling me that Rita Perez had passed away on a car accident. That broke my heart and destroyed my world on that moment. I didn't know what to do. I went back to Kansas, and since it was over the summer, right before 1 year before I had to finish my degree, I wanted to give up. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't care about my degree. I didn't care about going to optometry or research, because everything had gone away. But then, after a few days, I said, what am I going to do at home? Am I just going to crawl up in bed and cry all the time? Am I going to let my mom see me crying all the time? Am I going to give my dream away of helping other people? Am I going to let her dream die as well? So I decided to go back to Kansas State University, and I didn't do it alone. I had help, and this is only a small population of people that helped me out. My brother, he was here. He was supporting me all the time. I had my family. I had friends. I had Anita. I had Brett Sandercock, who he was in a sabbatical in Norway, right? I'm guessing. And he contacted my peers from my REU and said, hey, talk to this guy. He contacted other faculty and said, please take care of this guy. And that's what the faculty did for me. They'll help me out. And that's why I'm really grateful to Kansas State University, because they took care of me whenever I could have fallen on the cracks. And so what did I do after graduate or after undergraduate? I knew that I wanted to go into research. So I started applying to post-bachelor's degrees or post-bachelor's opportunities. The one that I applied is called PrEP. And so I applied to different universities. The one that took me in was the University of Rochester in New York, upstate New York, not the city. And I also, I still have a couple of minutes, I think. And I also, you know how I had a bad experience that 1 year? I also had a great time because I focused on my classes because that's the only thing that I had. And I focused on the things that I needed to focus. And I was able to get the Distinguished Undergraduate in Research Award, which I thought it was a big deal. And I was really honored. And yeah, at that moment, I didn't care about awards, but it definitely made me feel that I wasn't just doing things for just doing them. So I went to the University of Rochester, published my research after a year, and then I transferred to the University of Wisconsin, where I did my graduate studies in studying two-toed and three-toed sloths and how they use resources in Costa Rica. That was a great experience. And I'll tell you one of the great experiences that I had. The first time that I was in Costa Rica, working on the forest, I saw toucans. I saw poison frogs. I saw crocs. I saw howling monkeys, howler monkeys. And I realized how fortunate I was. How many people in the whole world get to experience that? Not many. So like I said, my project was looking at resource use by two-toed and three-toed sloths. A side project that I worked with my professor, it was to figure out why sloths poop once a week and come down to the ground. That was just a side project. It's not gonna go anywhere. And so what we looked at was how sloths come down to the ground. They do a little dance, which I copy it sometimes whenever I go to dance, and they go like that. And what they are doing is they are creating a little incision into the ground to deposit their feces. Once they deposit their feces, they go back to the canopy of the tree. In biology, that doesn't make sense. Because one, they're naming you a sloth, so you are lazy by nature, right? So why are you coming down to the ground? Move up, right? But these guys, they are risking their life as well because coyotes or wild dogs can snatch them and kill them. So they risk their life doing that, and then they go back to the canopy. At the same time, they have moths that live in their hair, and you can see those. They jump into the feces, deposit their eggs. The eggs become larvae. The larva eats the nutrients from the feces. And then they become adults, get wings, and they start flying up into the canopies looking for more sloths. And then they live in the sloth, hide from predators that can eat those moths, like birds and arthropods. And then they die. And then what happens when they die? There's fungi that serves as decomposers. So they separate the big chunks and make them smaller chunks and make that into nitrogen and phosphorus, which that's what plant needs, right, to grow? Say yes. And then they grow algae. The algae uptakes those nutrients, and that's why some sloths, they look green. Many of them. So I work with two-toed and three-toed sloths. We see this behavior more consistent with three-toed sloths. We just didn't know why. So what we hypothesized was that they were using it to supplement their poor diet. In captivity, these guys, they don't do well. They suffer from malnutrition. And if you think about it, what do we do in a facility that is clean? We take care of their poop, right? Okay. And then if we take care of their poop, since you are really smart, what happens? The moths go away, right? Ah, she's a genius. Dr. Sandercock, you have another one right here. And then, therefore, the algae goes away, right? Okay. And then they don't do well with the diet. So that's what we were claiming, that was happening. So I collected many samples, look at their vomit or digesta that I had to put. I won't tell you the procedure. But anyways, I collected the vomit and look if they were eating the algae. And they were. So we were trying to see how is this algae supplementing their diet. So we looked at lipids. And it seems like the lipids that the algae carries would be a really good supplement for their poor diet. And that's what we think that they are doing, or why they are doing it. But it also could be because of amino acids that they are trying to consume through the algae. Nonetheless, this publication was published in a good scientific magazine, and some journal or some popular media got it, and they really liked it. It was in the New York Times, Discovery, and it has a lot of jokes about poop, but nonetheless, it made us famous, so I'm okay with it. So I'm about to wrap up. Once I finished graduate school, I went back to my hometown, and you know how I wanted to make an impact in my hometown? I went to work in education. I worked for 2 years in a high school trying to motivate students in order to graduate from high school. Hopefully that they would go into college or go to a trade school. These students, they had demographics of low socioeconomic background, They were minority students, and they were not motivated. So it was kind of hard to work with them. Nonetheless, it was really rewarding whenever you actually had an impact with those students. After graduate school, you feel like you have a ton of time. So I feel like I had a lot of time in my hands, so I got involved in, I founded something that is called Nerd Talk, and I invited professionals or people to talk about science and other fields and educate the community. Lastly, I became a SU docent to promote conservation. And lastly, I also became a motivational speaker. Not too bad for someone that doesn't speak English, lady. So after those 2 years, I moved to, and that's just my migratory pattern. It's pretty crazy. Then I moved to the Ohio State University, where I worked with really smart students. Average ACT of 31. They have GPAs that didn't even know existed at 4.5 out of 4. But nonetheless, I managed 100 plus first years, about 60 second year scholars. And I try to help them out with seeking internships. I try to help them out with how to navigate in such a big school, how to do well in the STEM classes. And I won't tell you much about it, but I'll let one of my students talk about how the program has benefited him.
Hi, my name is Adam Smith. I'm a first-year student at Ohio State studying computer science and engineering.
I'll show you this one. This one works better.
My name is Adam Smith. I'm a first-year student at Ohio State studying computer science and engineering, and I'm a member of the STEM Exploration and Engagement Scholars Program. Being a part of the STEM Scholars Program has been very beneficial for me in a lot of ways, and I'm just very grateful to be a part of it. Coming from out of state, living on a floor of all STEM scholars, and having that community right from the beginning has been really beneficial for me, and just being able to go through my first year of college with others who have similar interests as me and are in similar classes as me has truly been invaluable. The STEM Scholars Program has provided me with countless opportunities to grow academically and as a person. I have learned how to find internship opportunities, research opportunities, and just how I can set myself up for success when I'm applying for those positions. Being a part of the STEM Scholars Leadership Council has given me a chance to develop my leadership skills while working with others in a team-based format. Participating in STEM-based K-12 outreach, which is a major component of the STEM Scholars Program, has allowed me to step into the world of elementary school students and just share my enthusiasm for STEM with the younger students in inner-city Columbus Public Schools. The impact that the STEM Scholars Program has had on my college career has far exceeded what I ever anticipated. I'm so thankful for all the opportunities that have been given to me, and I'm very grateful for people like Jorge Eduardo who are helping to set me up to be successful in the future.
Okay, I also had another video, but I'm not going to show you that one. Andrew is also a great student, but he's lost. I'm out of time. Okay. I just have one more slide, and we should be good. Okay, so if anyone is here for extra credit, this would be the time to actually get your pen out and take notes. Because that's what my brother told me, hey, I bet you anything that people are here not just to look at you, they're here for extra credit. If so, that's okay. So what I would advise any of you guys is, I already told you this, but I'll summarize it. I think one of the most important things if you're gonna do in college is learn how to learn. And sometimes that is the hardest things in the whole world, because in high school you guys are the king of the hill or queen, depending on what you are. And then you get to college, and then things become a little bit harder. This book would help you a lot. It's meant for professors, but if a professor can learn this, you definitely can learn that too. Another thing that I'm going to suggest is to talk to your professors. Office hours are meant for a reason, and they have it there. And sometimes you have office hours and no one shows up. You're wasting that time. So use that time. Also, go to departmental seminars. I promise that they might be boring at first, but then they get better. And then you get to know faculty, graduate students, and then you start looking at different opportunities for you. And this is the secret one. One thing that students don't realize is that you might have a 4.5 GPA, which not many people have in college, but you might have a 4.0 GPA, and you might be the best student in the whole world. But if you are a jerk, trust me, professors are not going to help you with opportunities. So manners go a long way. Also, be grateful. If someone actually took the time to write you a letter of recommendation, what are you going to do? What's that?
Early childhood education.
Oh, but let's say someone writes you a letter of recommendation. What are you going to do?
Internship.
And you're going to thank the person that wrote you the letter of recommendation, right? Okay, perfect. That's being grateful. And be passionate about your field. Again, we don't care if you have the 4.0 if you're not showing us that you really care about what you're doing. And lastly, get involved in organizations. Not in too many, but get into some that you can have a meaningful impact. And with that being said, and I took more time than I was supposed to, I am done. Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you so much, Jorge. That was amazing, phenomenal. So now we would like to welcome everyone to go out to the lobby. We have some cookies and refreshments out there, and then please follow the lead of the student alumni board members, or the ones with the business professional name tags on. We'll be coming back in here around 5:20 or 5:25 in order to be ready for Dalton's keynote speech. But otherwise, go enjoy some refreshments, feel free to mingle, and we'll be back in a little bit. Thanks.